everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest for you. He's an author, he's an agent, and not only that, he's also the founder and managing partner of Third Wind Group. Welcome to the show, John.
Hey, Otto, what's going on, man? Thanks for the invite.
Of course, thank you. Really appreciate you coming on. Before we go into your personal story, John, if you can give the audience just a brief general overview of who is the Third Wind Group.
Yeah, so Third Wind Group, we're also known as TWG. We're the trusted partner for today's modern athlete, entertainer, or entrepreneur who wants to make a positive difference. Positive difference in their community, through their career, by leading by example. We're kind of going away from like the old agency model where it was all about, it was just all about the Benjamins. Yes, we're helping our clients make money, but we're also helping our clients make a positive impact. So think of us as that a new up and coming modern agency for the modern athlete, the modern entertainer, the modern entrepreneur who wants to do well by doing good.
I love that. I can't wait to get into how you even got into this industry. I find it so fascinating, and I'm sure many of our audience will too. Before we go into that, are you originally here from the DMV area?
Yes, sir. So I grew up in Bethesda, Maryland, kind of close to the NIH. Anybody who's from around here will know, NIH and the new Walter Reed. That was home. And I went to high school down in DC at Gonzaga. So I was one of those kids taking the metro almost every day to get into school. And then I went to Georgetown for undergrad business school. So to say I'm a DC, Maryland, Virginia guy would be an understatement. I've either lived in, DC, Maryland, or Virginia. I did one little stint in Arlington after graduation from Georgetown. But otherwise, I've lived in DC, Maryland, and Virginia pretty much my entire life. So very much a local guy.
Love that. Love that very much. So growing up in Bethesda, what were you into? Do you remember as a child, what did you like?
Yeah, well, I mean, sports. Sports was a big part of life. I was a baseball player, pretty good one, but not like a prodigy or anything. I pitched, I played, shortstop, third base. And yeah, I was kind of obsessed. I was the kid watching Sports Center 3 or 4 times in the morning, right? Seeing all the stories, all the highlights, all the personalities, really getting into sports, not just as an athlete, but as a fan. And yeah, that definitely influenced a lot of what I've decided to do with my career. I also, I got into music a bit. I really kind of got into some leadership positions. I guess, sports kind of helped me figure out, how to be a leader, how to be a good teammate, and got into some leadership positions in high school and then into college. But yeah, as a kid, I was really that sports obsessed, baseball nut, watching all the games, emulating all the players, while watching the games, I would emulate their batting stances and whatnot. I'm a big Orioles fan, not a Nationals fan, because I was in that generation with Cal Ripken Jr., was kind of in the twilight of his career with the Orioles, but he was the Iron Man, right? And he was that legendary player who was larger than life and who had this amazing record of 2,632 consecutive games played without missing a game. So, that'll give you a good sense of the type of kid I was. It's like sports obsessed, adore the Orioles, idolize Cal Ripken Jr. I'm sure there are plenty of other young kids or more so millennials who can resonate with that kind of upbringing.
Yeah, especially in this area, back then, I don't think we didn't have the Nationals in town. So the only baseball team was the O's.
Exactly. And you know what? The Nats have brought a lot to this area. I don't dislike the Nats. I'm just, I'm a diehard O's fan. What can I say? I definitely have the thought process of like, you grow up with a team, you stick it with that team no matter what. And the O's had some rough seasons as I was growing up. Don't get me wrong. Like, it was bad there for about 12 to 14 years. We had consecutive losing seasons until we turned it around. But I'm a big loyalty guy. I'm going to stick with the O's. And they're having a great year this year. So loyalty pays off sometimes.
Yeah. It sounds like your first passion in sports was baseball then.
Definitely was a baseball nut. I was a pitcher. I played
Okay.
shortstop and third base like Cal Ripken, and I was always kind of playing up on the teams. You know, if I was 12, I was playing on the 13 and 14-year-old team, et cetera, playing on the travel teams. It was pretty intense. I think it's actually more intense for young athletes today to be a competitive athlete and to rise up and get your scholarships and whatever. But I remember going, traveling a ton, getting in the car, driving down to Hollywood, Maryland. I don't know if we have any listeners from Hollywood, Maryland, but driving all over the state, driving up to Pennsylvania for games. Baseball definitely. I mean, baseball teaches you a lot about life too. I feel like I learned how to fail in public, which would help me later in life when I decided to get into entrepreneurship. But baseball taught me a lot about, okay, learn how to fail in public, learn how to work hard, learn how to be a good teammate. All those lessons have served me well as I've grown up and become professional in something other than baseball, which is extremely difficult sport to be a professional in.
Yeah. I'm glad you shared as far as what baseball taught you, outside of the diamond, and you use it now every day in business.
Right. So, look, I now am for lack of a better term, I am a sports entertainment marketing agent. I don't really like the term agent because I think that's kind of that traditional agent model is going away a little bit. And now I think of myself more as the business partner for athletes, the business partner for entertainers, a business partner for entrepreneurs who are using their personal brands to basically get sponsorships to grow their own business or to advance their career. But a lot of the things that I learned through sports as an athlete, I'm applying now. Like, not only do I have to be a good teammate to my clients, otherwise why would they work with me? But I've got a business partner who's from Baltimore, Maryland, so even deeper DMV ties for us at TWG. More or less, everything is teamwork. Everything is teamwork between me and my partner, our associate team, our clients, our community. We're all about being positive contributors. And that kind of starts with our interpersonal relationships between ourselves, between our clients, and how we treat the people around us. So I'm always a huge advocate for sports because when you're young, it's, you're more kind of self-centered or, more insecure, but you learn how to kind of get over that by being on a team, by working towards something with your peers. And it really sets you up nicely. Because when you get into the business world or when you get into, adult relationships, you've got to be able to navigate that, right? You've got to be able to navigate how to be a good teammate, how to get along well with others, and how to achieve things, right? It doesn't matter if it's your business or if it's in your relationships with a significant other or a spouse. Like, it is all teamwork, right? It is all how do we get along? How do we get stuff done? And how do we thrive together?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. John, growing up playing baseball, I'm sure every kid's dream is, I want to make it to the majors. Was that one of yours?
Well, yeah, when I was a lot younger, yes. When
Okay.
I was a lot younger, yes. But then as I started to become a teenager, my dream was more, I want to be a general manager for an MLB club.
Oh, okay.
So, all right, you could say around 13, 14, 15, I started thinking and started falling in love with the business side of sports, right? The transactions, free agency, trades, right? All the different elements that go into team building.
Hmm.
I fell in love with that. And I got to give credit to, like EA Sports video games and sports video games too, because they had those modes where you could be the GM and you could build your dynasty, build your franchise. And I think that I was part of a generation of kids who fell in love with that idea of like, oh, I want to be a GM. Like, I want to make the moves. Like, I'm smarter than the old guys who are making decisions for my favorite team right now. Like, I could do a better job building a roster. The old armchair GM or armchair coach type of thing. But definitely once I realized I wasn't necessarily a elite athletic talent with a path to Major League Baseball, I started thinking, all right, well, there's this other thing, there's this other side of sports, which is the business side of sports, which is, it's more about personnel, it's about scouting, it's about making decisions, it's about, making kind of determining how do you build a championship caliber team. I kind of got obsessed with that. How do these teams get built, right? Why are the Orioles not winning? What could they do differently? How could they organize themselves, make better decisions to actually build a great team, a championship caliber team? And I think that informed what I started to do once I got into college, once I got into undergrad business school at Georgetown. It was, okay, how do I get my foot in the door in the sports and entertainment industry? How do I position myself to maybe one day have a shot at becoming one of 30 general managers in Major League Baseball? Again, shooting very high for myself, very, very difficult jobs to get. But maybe there was a path for me to perhaps just work in a front office, right? Maybe work with player development, or work in scouting, or work in any number of different positions within a front office. Maybe I wouldn't become a GM, but at least I can be in the game, right? I can work in the game. I could translate that passion that I had as a kid into a career, into something that I felt I would be good at and that I would enjoy doing every day. And I think that's kind of what I was getting at. Is I wasn't like a lot of my peers, I guess, at Georgetown, where there's a clear pipeline to go from Georgetown Business School to Wall Street, or go from Georgetown Business School to go into consulting. That didn't really appeal to me. I was more like, ooh, I wanted to see if I can get into sports. But then I also kind of had this entrepreneurial itch too, which we can get into. All in all, I was fortunate enough to land a couple internships when I was in school at Georgetown with the Tiger Woods Foundation. They were running a golf tournament at the time called the AT&T National to benefit the Tiger Woods Foundation. So I got to work on a golf tournament back in 2012. Tiger actually won that tournament at Congressional Country Club, by the way, in 2012. And then the following year, I landed an internship with the Washington Nationals while I was still a student. And then I worked for them a little bit, mostly in game day operations, right? Client services. But foot in the door, I like to tell people the story that more or less I was like a bouncer at Nationals Park back in 2013. They had just implemented this new ticketing system, and so they needed people to troubleshoot at the gates if there was some issue with somebody trying to get into the ballpark that didn't work. They basically put this little Palm Pilot in my hand to figure out and to scan a ticket and figure out what happened. And inevitably I would just tell people like, oh, you don't have tickets to tonight's game. You have tickets to tomorrow night's game. You need to go buy tickets, right? That kind of stuff. So those are my first two jobs in sports. And it was awesome. It was pretty awesome. Young 20-something-year-old guy, wanted to work in sports, and here I am working for an MLB club. Now, the reality was poor pay, not many hours, grunt work, nowhere near the front office of the Washington Nationals, but it was cool. It was cool to be in the ballpark, to be working for the Nats, even though I'm an Orioles fan. And it definitely helped me to get started, get my foot in the door to basically just, get started in the sports entertainment industry. You got to start somewhere. That was where I started.
Yeah. John, if I can briefly take you back, not many people going into college know what they want to do. You're one of the few who actually knew, as far as this is my journey. This is what I'm going to do next. These are the steps. This is what I have to do to get my foot in the door and get that experience. When you mentioned you were playing those video games as a GM, drafting player, this and that, looking at stats, did that just come naturally from you? Did you see it somewhere? Did you read it somewhere? How did that come about?
Well, for what it's worth, I just felt like this is fun. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy not only following and watching the games, but then I enjoy all the business side of it. All right, who's getting traded at the trade deadline? All right, what is free agency like? Where are players moving and why? Who's getting the contracts, right? So it just appealed to me. I guess takeaway for anybody is like, all right, what naturally appeals to you without thinking about like how much money you're going to make?
Yeah.
Right. Where do you actually see yourself having, like, truly enjoying the work? Right. That's what I didn't necessarily ask myself that, but at least I had an intuition that, yeah, I will enjoy the work if I find myself working in sports entertainment. I didn't necessarily know I was going to get into marketing. I didn't know I was going to get into sales. I didn't know I was going to start a business, but at least I had enough of a intuition, and I kind of went with my gut that, like, all right, maybe I won't get paid as much, but I'll enjoy it. I'll be young, so it's not like I'm going to have a whole bunch of, responsibilities or bills to pay, and then we'll see where it goes. I had no idea that I would eventually leave sports and go into startups, right? So that's an interesting element. I took a complete left turn and ended up getting into startups when I was about 24, 25. And then I kind of found my way back.
Oh.
I found my way back through an experience at a really great DC company called EverFi. And then essentially what happened is I started to kind of merge two things that I was really interested in. I merged my interest in entrepreneurship with my interest in the sports and entertainment industry. And that's kind of what happened. That's like the short version of the start of my career has been kind of follow my genuine curiosity and interest, but then also take some risks and take some chances on myself to help me advance perhaps faster, or take a side door to get where I wanted to go faster. Be entrepreneurial, take risks, fail, and get up and then try again. I don't know how long we're going, Otto, on this podcast, but I can get into some of that stuff. I can tell you now, I'm still like a bit in startup phase with TWG, but I'm doing what I want to do. I've kind of created my own little world here, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs will tell you, like, that's the appeal. Control your own time, choose exactly who you get to work with. Yes, it's hard. Yes, you might have to sacrifice, but it's worth it at the end of the day.
So John, coming out of Georgetown, you finished Georgetown, you said you go work at a startup, right?
That was about 2-3 years after I graduated.
Okay.
Right. I left the sports world. I actually got a job after the Nats, just kind of working, entry level job at an association in DC. But then I was like starting to get into entrepreneurship. I started showing up to these Georgetown entrepreneurship events, meeting entrepreneurs. And I had taken a class at Georgetown called social entrepreneurship, right before I graduated. The light bulb went off, I guess, a little bit. How do we use businesses to improve society, right? So yeah, that was kind of what kicked off. All right, let me go away from sports for a while now. Let's go try this entrepreneurship thing. So I went out and found other entrepreneurs, right? And that's how I got involved in my first startup called Mark. And yeah, that was quite a journey in and of itself.
And your role there was more sales and marketing, or okay?
Yeah, so I was a sales marketing guy. We were kind of a ragtag team. The business was called Mark, or Mark Labs. Ragtag team. We were trying to build software that would help measure the effectiveness of charitable giving and corporate giving and impact investing. This was a very hot topic. This was about 2015, 2016, very hot topic. Something that a lot of people in the business world were talking about, kind of pre-ESG, which is a very hot topic still to this day, but it's much more commonly accepted or common practice. Back in 2015, 2016, a lot of corporations were like, how the heck do we do this, right? That is a very long story, that Mark journey, but we as a young company, we got into this Techstars accelerator. Techstars runs these big startup accelerators for up and coming, potential big, big time technology companies. We got in, we moved to London because it was the Barclays accelerator. That was the one little stretch in life where I didn't live in this area. Early 2016. Moved to London, went through a 90-day accelerator, and the team broke up at the end of the accelerator.
Oh, wow.
so it was a bit of a pressure cooker environment.
Sure.
I don't want to get into too many details, but
Yeah.
that went from like, okay, we've got into this accelerator, we have a chance to go to the moon in terms of valuation, to, oh wow, this was a huge, I don't know, I don't want to call it a failure, but it was kind of a loss, and I had to lick my wounds, move back to DC, and kind of start over, reset, and be like, all right, where do I go from here?
And when you reset, that's when you head back into the sports industry again?
Yeah, so, all right, so the recipe for me has always been to show up somewhere, an event usually, meet people and then follow up with them and then follow through with them. So I just that was the recipe for meeting the entrepreneur who I helped start Mark with. So I just kind of repeated that recipe again with my next gig, which was EverFi. And EverFi in 2016, they were about an 8-year-old company, but they were venture backed. They had, and this is an education technology company, venture backed. They had more experienced leadership. All the co-founders had at least 15 to 20 years of experience. They had experienced executives in the C-suite. They had about 200 people already. They had a bunch of customers, a bunch of revenue. So I showed up at an event and met the head of talent at EverFi like 2 months, or like not even 1 month after I quit the startup I was with. Told her about my story. Hey, I was just at a startup. EverFi sounds great. I learned this, and this from failing, but would be interested in what you guys are up to. She goes, you know what? I've got a marketing person who's clamoring for good people for his team. Why don't you call me or send me an email and I'll link you up with him. 6 days later, I started at EverFi. Wow. It was literally like, boom, I was contract to hire, but it was like, met this woman at the event, talked to the hiring manager the next day, got an offer 2 days later, started 3 days after that. So again, kind of like, was it luck or was it I was in the right place at the right time? I had this experience that was relevant, but it was perfect because I didn't start in sports entertainment at EverFi. I started in a sales development role where I was kind of cold calling. I was doing cold outreach. I was trying to set sales appointments and basically build pipeline for the company. And it was an incredible experience. I needed that. I needed to get more specialized and concrete experience in sales so that I could develop more as a professional. I think I was a little bit over my skis with my first startup. Just I didn't have enough experience. I didn't have enough, all right, this is what works. This is what it takes. This is what sales and marketing is all about. So going to EverFi, I worked in their financial education division, which is their biggest division starting out. But then over time, this company evolved a lot, as many growth stage companies do. And then I found my way over into EverFi's sports and entertainment division. So what they did was they essentially ran large-scale youth education programs for the NFL, Major League Baseball, the NHL, the Premier League, and sports franchises like the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Brooklyn Nets, the Dallas Mavericks, and on, right? They did a big partnership with Charles Barkley, right? So they leveraged technology and they leveraged the power of sports and entertainment to distribute that technology and make it fun and exciting for the kids. And the whole point was to teach critical life skills, as they called it. They wanted to teach about character development. They wanted to teach about, science and technology, engineering and math. They wanted to teach entrepreneurship, all these different things that, the EverFi founders, they felt like, hey, we're not really teaching these things in our schools effectively. So let's use technology. Let's use, partnership with the corporate sector, essentially just sponsorship, and let's get this education for free into the schools, and then let's partner with amazing companies, franchises, leagues in sports to make it fun and exciting, and to more or less, merge what I called it kind of a merger of sports marketing and cause marketing. And that was the key insight for me. It was like, wow, these companies are getting to, get the goodwill in the community by sponsoring education, and they're getting the excitement and the appeal of sports. Like me, there are kids all over the country who admire athletes, right? So if you can bring athletes into the classroom after kids have just taken a course from the NFL called Character Playbook, and they can reinforce the lessons from the online course with an NFL player saying it's important to build healthy relationships. It's important to build good habits, to treat everybody with respect, et cetera. That was really powerful. Seeing that live and being a part of that team, building out EverFi Sports Entertainment, was like, wow, this is the merger of sports entertainment, where I've always wanted to be, and business as a force for good. It was kind of that perfect intersection for me, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is right where I want to be. Of course, then I took another turn, and we can get into that, but the EverFi Sports Entertainment experience, a great company here in DC, that really set me up to go on this path I've been going on for 4 years now with TWG.
Was it then, did you start thinking about maybe having your own firm, or did that come at a later time?
Yeah. So at EverFi, I was there for about 3.5 years. Great people, love that company, love everybody who I worked with. At that time, though, I still had a bit of an entrepreneurial itch. I guess once you get the entrepreneurial bug, there's no shaking it, right? So I was, going through my mid to late 20s with EverFi, but then I had this opportunity to write a book, which was not on my roadmap. Again, I don't really believe too much in career roadmaps. I kind of just believe more in opportunities, seeing the opportunities, and what opportunities are worth taking a risk on. I joined something called Creator Institute, started by a Georgetown professor named Eric Kessler. And his whole mantra was, if you can have a creation event, right? You start a podcast like you're doing, Otto, or you write and publish a book and put your name on it, that will accelerate you wherever you want to go in your career. I was like, yeah, I believe in that. I'm also have this entrepreneurial background. I've never thought about writing a book, but yeah, I could do this. Sure, why not? So this is about 3 years into my stint at EverFi. I decided I'm going to write and publish a book. And little did I know that was going to lead to all kinds of other things, right?
Wow.
So what we were talking about earlier, this merger between sports marketing and cause marketing, right? Integrating cool community giving, community impact type programs into sports marketing. That to me was an insight, wow, this is where things are going. So I decided to write about that. And the end result was a book called 3-Win Sponsorship, the next generation of sports entertainment marketing, right? The thesis was essentially, number one, the traditional way of doing sports marketing is kind of getting tired, and nobody really cares about billboards in ballparks anymore. That was kind of the problem. My solution was start to integrate these cool community giving, community impact programs into sports marketing to get better results from your marketing, and to just do the right thing and be a good steward in your community. So the whole concept was win, 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 right? Win for, whoever the sponsor is, because they get good results in their marketing spend. Win for the property, like a sports franchise or an individual who's getting the sponsorship dollars, but then a win for the community, right? All right, we're using a piece of our resources to pay for education, right? A needed education for youth in a certain part of our community. Or maybe you're tackling food insecurity. Maybe you're tackling, racial injustice. Maybe you're tackling mental health. whatever you're seeing in your community that you feel like there could be improvement, there needs to be more resources here. My argument was, well, let's direct some of our marketing resources to that, and then let's talk about it. Let's put it into our marketing. And to me, that was a response to this move towards what's called conscious consumerism. And you've probably been exposed to this. Like, how do we show as a company that we care, that we actually care, and we're not just about the bottom line. We're not just about enriching our shareholders and our executives. Now, I'm not under any illusions. Like, companies are still about that, right? Profit making, return on investment for shareholders. But I felt like there could at least be an improvement in, or can we at least demonstrate through our marketing that we care? Yes, we're in business for profit making, but hey, can we take some of our marketing resources and direct them towards necessary nonprofit programming, education, community giving, etc. That was my whole argument. It came out in the book in December 2019. And then I said to myself, you know what? I feel pretty strong about this thesis. Why don't I build a business around it too? So that's how we got to Third Win Group. I just kind of said, hey, I think this is the way things are going. It was middle of 2019. I had my book more or less half written or 3/4 of the way written. And so even with a great job at EverFi, I was like, you know what? I need to start another business. I need to start another business. I've got this book coming out. It's a great opportunity at EverFi, but I need to follow this. I need to try this out. And still being pretty young and single, I was like, even if this doesn't go well, what's the worst outcome? I'll be 30 or 31 and I'll have to go get a new job, but I'll at least have given this a try. So that is the story of how Third Win Group came about. Quit my job at EverFi. A few days later, I incorporated Third Win Group. And then, the first few months was just like, all right, I need to finish this book, publish it. Then I need to promote this book. I need to start figuring out who my clients are going to be. And man, we're still standing 4 years later after a wild past 3 years for anybody, but also especially for startups. We're still alive and we're still growing at TWG, and it's a gratifying and extremely challenging, but extremely gratifying journey to get to this point, and then to see where we can go in the future. It's pretty awesome.
When you started TWG, do you immediately start thinking, okay, what is this business going to be? I know at the same time you were working on your book as well. So what was the plan there?
You know what, Otto? I had no plans to be a talent agent. I thought I was going to be a consultant. I thought I was going to be selling the book, and I was going to be a thought leader, and I was going to go to the leagues.
That was the original plan, to be a consultant.
Yeah, I thought
okay.
This 3-1 sponsorship stuff is genius. Everybody's going to want to buy the book. They're going to want me to come in and give a talk or consult with their sponsorship teams. Not how it played out at all. Right. Not how it played out at all. So yes, I thought that was going to be the play, but what ended up happening is, number one, the pandemic hit about 3 or 4 months after I published the book. So there was no like going into a team like the Washington Nationals to give a talk on 3-1 sponsorship. So then I pivoted to, okay, I guess I'll just have to go on podcasts, So I started to promote the book on podcasts. Then it was, well, how can I even land any clients in this environment? I can't meet with anybody face to face. So I actually picked up contract work at another agency while I was promoting the book, while I was trying to land some clients. What ended up happening is, unexpectedly, one of the podcast interviews I did, a professional athlete heard it and then reached out to me. It was like, dude, and I say dude because he's from Southern California. He's a beach volleyball player, Jeremy Casefier. He goes, dude, I really like the way you think about sponsorships. Like, this is actually what I've been looking for. I've been wanting to do something like you described, which is integrate a cause, integrate my personal values into my sponsorship portfolio. Do you want to talk? Yeah, I want to talk. Professional athlete who's into my point of view and my perspective on sports marketing, like, hell yeah. That kind of was the key turning point, because Jeremy really bought into my vision and where I thought things were going. He also wanted to apply it to his own business. So at that point, I was like, all right, maybe I should just represent athletes.
Yeah.
Why don't I focus on that? And then, again, didn't go exactly to plan. I ended up starting to represent athletes and a few musicians, and I just started experimenting, but all with the focus on serving talent, serving athletes, entertainers, entrepreneurs. So again, it was not what I planned. It was an emergent strategy. It was like, okay, the marketplace is telling me that I should go try and represent talent, because I have at least one person who believes in my message and what I'm trying to do. And if one person believes in me, then maybe there are a few others out there who will believe in what I bring to the table. So that's how it really began, and how I pivoted over to focusing on talent representation, talent management, and now ultimately where we're at today, which is being essentially the business partner for the athlete, the modern athlete. I think of every athlete, every entertainer, and now every entrepreneur as their own small business, really. And their personal brand is kind of one of the key drivers of the business, right? Their performance is one of the main drivers as an athlete or as an entertainer. But then the second piece is their personal brand, their reputation, how they're presenting themselves online, their following. So how do you turn that into revenue?
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially the business. But it's the reason I say it's not really a traditional agency is that, okay, now it's more about how do I build assets around my personal brand? How do I build my own apparel company or apparel brand? How do I build my own podcast? How do I create maybe a book or something that I can own? Yes, we're still doing sponsorships. We're still doing endorsement deals, that kind of stuff. We're trying to weave in our methodology around win-win-win with all of those, and we are. But now we're also getting strategic with clients and saying, okay, how do you take your personal brand and turn it into, a business with multiple different streams of revenue, right? And we put all of our clients are the CEO of the business, and we then see ourselves as CMO, director of sales. We're doing operations, we're doing all kinds of different stuff to essentially help them run their business. Maybe jumped ahead a little bit there, but that's how we evolved. We went from, I'm going to be a consultant selling a bunch of books, yada, 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 to, oh, now I'm a talent agent, to now we're like, oh, the old agency model doesn't really play anymore. And now it's more about how do we become a business partner to the athletes we work with, the entertainers we work with, the entrepreneurs we work with, and how do we help them leverage their personal brands to grow their business?
John, that first client, it was great. I mean, it was almost perfect timing. Landing the other ones after that, athletes, entertainers, how easy or difficult was it?
Well, nothing's ever easy per se in entrepreneurship, but I get it. I guess tried to make it easier on myself by going where I already had relationships and seeking out people who I already had relationships with. I think anybody who breaks through in sports or in entertainment will tell you, I knew so-and-so introduced me to so-and-so and they introduced me to the next person. That's literally what happened. I happened to be close friends with an indie band from this area called Shade. Happened to be close friends with the band members of Shade. For those of you who are watching or listening, their song Trampoline went ultra, huge hit worldwide in about 2018, 2019. So I went to them. I said, hey, you guys have anybody helping you with sponsorship and with your personal brand and all that? They said, no, not really. Let's bring you in. Let's have you talk to our manager, have you talk to our team. And then boom, there's client number 2.
Okay.
Client number 3. All right, I'm telling some of my friends in my Georgetown network what I'm doing, what the business is about. Next thing you know, I'm sitting down with a friend who's an entrepreneur named Darius Baxter, also a DC guy, also a Georgetown guy, founder of Good Projects. He and I are sitting down one day, having a couple of drinks at the Wharf in DC. He goes, I want you to be my manager. I hadn't thought there was no deliberate strategy to start signing entrepreneurs. But as I thought about it, I was like, well, yeah, a founder, CEO of a business or a nonprofit is really is talent in many ways, just like an athlete or a musician or a comedian, etc. There's client number 3. Then, client number 3 introduces you to client number 4. Client number 4 introduces you to the next one. And now we've got momentum. Now we've got some credibility and some traction. Then we go and say, then we have to deliver, right? Help our clients make money. So that was a key piece to the puzzle. But yeah, it was starting where we were strong, where we had relationships. It was then asking for referrals. Hey, who else could we help, right? I think that is really important for anybody who's in business. Your customers are probably know other potential customers, so ask them, or at least show your worth so that they're likely to refer you. And now it's now that we've established ourselves, we have 4 years, almost 4 years under our belt in business. Now it's not easy to sign clients, but it's easier than it was when I was at 1 or at 0.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier now that we're at 12 to go get the next 12 because we know who we are a lot better now. Now I have a business partner. We have a small team helping us part-time, and we have that track record of we've helped these clients do X, Y, and Z. And, we can now go and pursue more athletes, perhaps even higher profile athletes from this area. We can go, one thing that's changed in this industry is NIL, name, image, and likeness. Rules have changed in the NCAA. So now we can start representing college athletes. In fact, we are now representing a couple of college athletes from Georgetown. We can even represent some high school athletes if we really want to. In DC and Maryland, it's legal for high school athletes to make money off of their personal brands. So again, I think that one of the biggest keys for me has been staying open to opportunities as they arise, not being very rigid and saying, nope, this is the strategy. I know what I'm doing. We have to do things this way. It's been more, okay, what's the opportunity in front of us? Does this take us closer to where we want to go? What relationships have we developed that now will help us grow? So, man, it's been wild to build a business and survive the past few years, and who knows what this year and next year have in store for us. But I feel a lot better about, hey, we've weathered this storm. We're still surviving, number one, but we're also growing, and now we're more established and we have more credibility and we have more, there's more legitimacy to Third Wind Group as opposed to when I was starting, it was just me and a laptop and and a book, an indie self-published book. That was all I got. But we've built up to a point now where it's like, oh yeah, we got advisors. I've got a business partner. We got a bunch of clients. I know what I'm doing more now as a leader of the business. We have more clarity on who we are, what we do, why you would work with us. So it's a good place to be, and we're really excited about what we have coming up and what the potential for TWG is.
Internally, John, are you guys handling everything as far as the marketing, the branding, all the sponsorship, or do you also sometimes bring in other third parties in to help?
Yeah, for the most part, it's all us. But yes, when we're not strong in something, we are not afraid to go outside of TWG and get help to help our clients or help us improve. My whole mindset is we're living in this internet, digital age. If we can get a lot done just by finding somebody who's stronger in an area and hiring them to get the job done than just us trying to stumble around and figure out how to do it. So yeah, we do a lot of our, if you're talent, if you're an athlete, if you're an entertainer these days, entrepreneurs as well, you're trying to make money off your personal brand, we can do a lot for you. We can do a lot for you. If there's something we can't do, we actually have a network of other small business owners and freelancers who can fill in the gaps. And that's the cool thing about, I think the opportunity for businesses these days is like, you can do a lot with a small team and an internet connection. You can do a whole lot. The barrier to entry is so low. All you really need is like a website and a Google Workspace subscription for about $100 a month, and you're in business, right? Or you need to pay a few fees on LegalZoom to incorporate, and then you need to get a bank account, and then boom, you're in business for $500 to $1,000. And can you scale up to 6 figures as a business with 2 or 3 people? Like, yeah, you totally can. It's not easy, but you totally can. So what I'm seeing is like, I think what I and my business partner, Eric, have really optimized for is how do we maintain as much ownership of our business as we can, and how do we scale as far as we can without going, too far down the path of venture capital. We're optimizing for like ownership and autonomy. That's what we're optimizing for. That's not necessarily the best path for everybody, but I think the opportunity is greater now than it's ever been for entrepreneurs to retain more ownership of your company and to scale up using all the different inexpensive tools at your disposal to run your business.
I completely agree. I mean, now with media, it's all about the latest round and how much did you raise, and you can bootstrap it and keep majority ownership in-house instead of giving it out.
Right. I mean, to be fair, we're still, working hard to grow our revenue, right? And it is harder when you don't have a bunch of capital at the start to reach that threshold of about 6 figures, right? It's hard to then reach that threshold of 7 figures. That's like the most difficult journey in startups is that 0 to 100K or 100K to 1 million. However, if you're willing to grind and stick it out long enough, imagine yourself as the majority owner with no dilution from outside investors as the owner of a 6 or 7 figure business. Then you're pretty much good. If you have a small staff, you can pay everybody and do well yourself. And then you can scale it up. And look, you might be looking at an exit, where you own the majority and you make an incredible, exit without having to deal with outside investors. That, not to say that's a bad thing, just like the opportunity is there. And it's an incredible opportunity to maintain ownership, to scale up, and learn a ton along the way. Like just learning all the business skills that it takes to get to scale to that level. Then you can sell your business and either take time off, or you can sell your business and go apply your skills to another business, start something new, or join a big, like it just gives you options. I think I would love to share with the audience that like, if you're willing to grind it out and work really hard on a business, you have so many options after that, because the skill set you build in building a business is unparalleled, right? You have to learn how to communicate. You have to learn how to sell. You have to learn how to build systems. You have to learn operations. you got to at least learn a little bit of accounting. You got to learn at least a little bit of finance. You have to learn how to be a leader. You have to learn how to be a good teammate. There's nothing like entrepreneurship, being a small business owner, to advance your career if you want to be in business or if you want to do anything really. Because no matter what you're doing, you're going to have to communicate. You're going to have sales and negotiation skills. All right. It might seem icky to some people, but let me tell you, sales and negotiation is going on all the time, every day, including with the people closest to you, right? So learning those skills are very important. But ultimately, yeah, like I actually don't think I've even made it yet. Like I feel like I've just gotten started, really. I've been in it for 4 years, but I don't feel like I've made it. I'm not like close to an exit or anything, but I feel like I've grown leaps and bounds by just taking on this challenge, right? I've grown leaps and bounds by taking on this challenge. You probably wouldn't even recognize me if you had met me before I started TWG. Much more confident, much more competent, incredible experiences, incredible relationships. And this process has forced me to grow at a fast pace. If that's what you're looking for, this could be a good path for you.
That's great. What would you say drives and motivates you?
Yeah, you know what? A couple things. One is I come from a family of small business owners. I've got my mom herself has been a small business owner in Bethesda for over 30 years, right? Kind of building on her legacy. And her father was a small business owner up in New York for about 45 years. And that business still exists to this day. It's run by my uncle, my cousins, right? Pretty incredible to be able to pull that off. So I guess it's partly just continuing that family legacy, right? We're kind of known for that. Also, my dad was a consultant and he was a freelancer for a long stretch of his career. So continue that legacy. But what motivates me more so is, again, that freedom and that autonomy, that ability to, as much as possible, control my own destiny. I think it's worth struggling and not being as comfortable, I guess, to in return get that chance at I get to choose how to spend my time every single day. And maybe I am working a lot of hours some of the time, but at least I chose that and I'm not, and I own the asset where all that time is going into, right? So that's one piece, the freedom, the autonomy. The other piece is the family legacy. The third piece is I had a really tough struggle with mental illness when I was younger. When I was about 18, 19 at Georgetown, really struggled with depression, I even had some bad psychosis. I was in the hospital. It was like I'd been a very healthy kid throughout life. Then all of a sudden I had this major health event. Had to take time off from school. And then all of a sudden, it was like, you're a person with mental illness, right? With severe mental illness. It eventually turned out that I had bipolar disorder. So it went from the depression side to the mania side all in a span of about 18 months. And then living with that and just like the shock to the system that gave me, it kind of made me realize that like, oh yeah, nothing is guaranteed. Like if I didn't have the support that I had from family and friends, what have you, I might not be here or, whatever. And so I guess when I was super young and had that mental illness experience that really shook me to my core, I kind of just made a decision. I was like, I'm not going to take anything for granted. I want to get the most out of life. I also don't want to let mental illness define who I am. So that definitely is an underlying motivator. And I actually still, I have had struggles with mental illness even recently, right? It doesn't necessarily go away, right? So that is definitely a motivator. I want to kind of turn these kind of struggles and I guess the suffering I've gone through into a motivator to be like, yeah, no, that's not going to be the definition of my life. I'm just like a person with mental illness. I'm going to live with it. I'm going to deal with it. And I'm going to prove to myself more than anyone that it's like, this is just a piece to my life. It's not going to be something that's going to prevent me from living a great life. It kind of, I guess, woke me up to a realization of like, yeah, I want to live an amazing life as I define it. So those are some of the things. I also think like, man, I'm glad now. When I first had my mental illness experience, it was still very taboo. But I'm glad now that we can talk about it more openly. I feel very comfortable talking about it now because it's like, look, we all have mental health. We don't all have mental illness like I've experienced, but we all have mental health. There are certain things that we can do to all have better mental health. So I want to share that with you, your audience, that like, it's okay to talk about mental health. All right. It's also okay to talk about mental illness. And hey, you probably didn't expect, I'm a pretty normal guy, right? You probably didn't expect that I've had this. This is an illness that's invisible unless you kind of live through it or you live with a person who has lived through it, right? So that's another motivator. One that I will hopefully carry on, and maybe there's some work I can do to help us continue to advance mental well-being throughout the population going forward.
Thank you for sharing that, John, and being open about it. It's true. Now it's a little bit more common, but still it's still an issue with mental health. And I'm glad you sharing it and you're a little bit vulnerable and just out there that it's okay, it's normal. You can still live a good life, a great life.
Right. It's not I mean, look, everybody goes through something and it doesn't necessarily have to be mental health. Like we all have health challenges or we know people who have really serious health challenges. Mm-hmm. And the main thing I think to take away from these is that you can get better, right? You can get better and you can still live a good life, a great life on your own terms. I hope that we can kind of improve to a point where fewer people are suffering to an extreme degree from mental health. It's really complex, and humans and human society are really complex, but at least we can start talking about it. At least we can share when we have had these struggles so that other people realize they're not the only one struggling.
What would you say is your biggest challenge with your role today at TWG?
Man, it's just breaking through from here to here, right? Mm-hmm. We're talking about growth being the priority for us, getting to certain milestones. Sure. Growth is really painful and hard because you've been doing things a certain way for a while. You get to a level, then you realize, damn, what got us here isn't necessarily going to get us there. So how do we actually level up and break through to that next level? So that's the biggest challenge. I've been working hard with my business partner. We've been trying to really hone in on like, what is it that's going to help us break through and grow the business, make it clear to everybody that we're a force to be reckoned with. We have the credibility, we have the bona fides in terms of what we can deliver. Mm-hmm. And like, how do we do that? I'm like still working through it as we speak. What is the growth trajectory? How do we pull it off? But ultimately, I guess what I've learned is that big part of it is you got to stay in the game long enough. I'm sure you have a few business owners, entrepreneurs who watch or listen to the show. Stay in the game is the message, right? Stay in the game long enough to experience the breakthrough, right? It's not necessarily about we have to get this big win before the end of the year. Otherwise no, it's like you can be crafty and you can maneuver and you can cut back here or there and sacrifice but you have to be in the game long enough. You have to be in business long enough for people to even recognize that you're legitimate, to recognize that you have credibility, to show that you can deliver results for people. So I'm trying to remain patient while also being urgent in like taking action to say, we got to level up now. But I also realize the results won't come necessarily overnight. So that's a challenge. How do we balance patience and urgency? How do we grow from what we've been doing as a business to where we want to go? And my theory right now is stay in the game long enough, continue working, continue adding value to people, and we'll get to that breakthrough.
That's great. Coming to an end here soon, what do you know now that you wish you would have known at the start of your business career?
All right. I have a single sentence that has really been a game changer. I think I kind of intuitively knew this, but then I heard someone else say it and it just clicked. And that is that you can't outwork relationships. I heard a guy named Marcus Bullock. He's another entrepreneur, CEO of a company called Flickshop. I saw him speak at an event, and he said that. I was like, that is so true. That is so true. I mean, truly, I would not be at least in this position today or have the opportunities in the future that I'm going to have if I didn't focus on building good relationships. I mean, business, end of the day, is all relationships, right? Like, people want to do business with people that they know, like, and trust. All right. Well, how do you build a character, and a reputation to where that is the case? How do you actually, build habits to follow through on those relationships? How do you be a valuable friend, a valuable business partner, a valuable member of a team, right? That's how you build good relationships, and good relationships lead to good business results. So that's something, if I was 20, 21, 22, I mean, I've always valued relationships, but I didn't realize how important they were to business success, right? Actually getting results, making sales, getting opportunities, all comes back to relationships.
That's great advice. What does the future look like for you in TWG the next couple of years?
Well, you're going to see us making a big push to grow. You're going to see us making a big push to add more clients to the roster, more athletes, more entertainers, more entrepreneurs, to improve our level of service for those individuals, help them get the results they want. And then I think, maybe there's another book in me. I started to tease out the idea for a book over the winter, but then I kind of pressed pause on it because there's just so much going on right now. But I do think I have more writing in me. I think TWG, we're just going to continue to work hard to be valuable to our customers, right? Build great relationships with our clients and customers. And I think the results will speak for themselves over time. That we realize, like, everybody wants to represent athletes. Everybody wants to represent entertainers. It's cool. It's a cool industry to be in. But what we've realized is, like, end of the day, it's like we gotta deliver great results. Otherwise, people aren't going to stay. So that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to grow. Maybe another book. I don't know, 2024. Give me some time on that one. But yeah, that's what you can expect from us.
Awesome. When you're not busy working, what do you like to do for fun in your free time?
Oh, man. Well, I was just over at 930 Club 2 nights ago for a show. So I love going to see live music. I might be going to another show Saturday night. I love to exercise, listen to podcasts, play golf. So, but ultimately too, like, I'm going to be at Capital One Arena a lot. I'm going to be at, a bunch of sports entertainment venues around the city. Whether my client is performing or not, you're more likely than not going to see me out at a game, probably at Nats Park over the next couple of months.
Great. people want to reach out to you, learn more about TWG, where can they go to, please?
Yeah, thank you. We're at thirdwin.com, thirdwin.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Just find me, John Balkam, on LinkedIn, or follow Third Win Group on LinkedIn or Instagram at Third Win Group. All good places to find us. I'm kind of getting away from Instagram personally, but our business account is going to be humming in the coming weeks and months.
Awesome. John, thank you so much for coming on. Really, it was a pleasure.
Thank you, Otto. Really enjoyed talking with you, man. Let's do it again.
Same. Take care.
All right.